My name is Sean Atkins. I will be your presenter for today. Let's go ahead and take a look. My screen right now showing Acumatica Cloud Certified Partner. As we get in here, a lot of people are always wondering, what's the benefits that we're going to get? And up front is going to be that upfront cost of any kind of infrastructure. You have the headache of having to support multiple different servers and costs of the staff, which although that you may have some of that right now, going forward, it definitely is one of those time savers and cost benefits. Speed and comfort of application. A lot of companies, they need the ability to grow with their application, and that's always something that can be easily added on since it's a service. And so at any point in time, you can add additional hardware space or move to faster hardware equipment. Cloud ERP, Acumatica, was built for the cloud. So the key here is any device, anywhere. It's walking around at a client's facility with your iPad, flipping through the warehouse, on your tablet, in the car, on your cell phone, seeing records. Acumatica has the ability that you can have everybody involved in your application. So everybody in the office can have access. It can be loaded and installed and go on. It doesn't have to be specifically for just a group of your employees. You don't have that nagging question is, we're going to hire John. We have to get another license. Acumatica has no licensing fees. They're based on small, medium, large, and extra large, and priced that way. Acumatica gives us multiple different ways for it to be deployed. If you need to have it on-premise because the requirements or regulations can't be up in the cloud, if you're interested in maybe in a private cloud where you're hosting the environment yourself, or if it needs to be in public space, you have accesses there as well. And any one of them can be interchangeable. So you could be in public space and then pull it down to on-prem if you felt like it, or move it into a private cloud. Tremendous amount of activity is happening around Acumatica as a product. You can see by some of the names of the companies that have or use Acumatica today. It's just an ever-growing field. Acumatica has won tremendous amount of awards. The Cody 2017 award at the bottom, that is the Golden Globe of the software publishing industry. So it's a very big one that they had. We were very excited about it last year. Acumatica is industry specific, so if you wanted to have a small business version, it comes with, and it shows you right here on the charts. So you have regular business management features, advanced functionality. You could move into the Commerce Edition or the Distribution Edition. We have a Field Service Edition, manufacturing out of the box, OEM. So have that opportunity. Again, there's only one cloud. It's Acumatica. Let's go ahead and jump into the presentation, and our goal today is we're going to take a look at Acumatica here, look at our product. Our agenda is that we're going to go ahead and take a look at our dashboards. We'll look at some multi-currency setups. We'll talk about the general ledger and how reporting, consolidation, importing journal entries. We'll review accounts payable. We'll go into accounts receivable. We'll do a CRM overview. We'll spend time looking at budgeting, offline snapshot, security, and the fixed asset module. Let's go take a look right now. Let's log in, and we'll look at what the experience would be per role. So I'm going to log in as the controller. And then I'll show you what the salesperson could look like, or even the accounts payable clerk for an organization. Opening up a browser, and I'm going to go ahead and click on my link. Acumatica will then open up its screen, and then I can then sign into any of the companies that they have. In this case, I'm just going to log into our demo company. And what you see will open up will be this fresh dashboard. You have a panel on the left-hand side. And in that section, I'm just going to go to my home page. And on my home page, you'll see that my dashboard opens up as well. So I happen to be logging in as the controller dashboard. I can see what's on hand, days required. Things are color-coded based on maybe urgencies that I need to be able to address immediately, or things that maybe might not be as urgent. Our dashboards will provide you with different kinds of drill down capability. I could look at any of these types of transactions. I could look at any of these accounts, see what makes it up. If I wanted to look at maybe overdue customers, I've got 42 of them. Double clicking on the account, and now right inside Acumatica, and I could see the list of all of those customers that are sitting out there in that overdue column. And I could start addressing it. One of the key things that we do have here is we also have different kinds of flavors of our dashboard. So if our dashboard, for instance, I wanted to see what the AP clerk looked at. If I was the accounts payable person, my login could be based on overdue bills, overdue accounts, what the cash requirements were needed, what I needed to approve today. I could even link out to different websites. In this case, this is out to the federal government for W-9. Maybe it's a new vendor that we're setting up, and before payments, we need to get a W-9 form from them. I could look at purchasing trends. And again, I can click and drill into any of these purchasing trends to see how things are going with them. Right into Westerly Good Foods. These are our purchases that we've done. Back off at our home page, if I wanted to see what the salesperson's view was, here's a real quick look at a salesperson's view. Again, each employee can have their own view, and it's customizable. In this case, looking at the design layout, you can see that we can create different kinds of designs. If I go ahead and I click on a widget, looking at the inquiry screen, I'm going to tell it what I want it to call it in this case. It could be linked to just maybe me. I could look at the scorecards, and then based on what kind of color coding I want it to be, normal would be our green color, and then alarming colors, 10 would be my alarm. So it would kind of weigh in between to determine how it should look within the system. And inside that, I can actually go into the cards, and I can look at maybe the way that we're going to go ahead and apply certain filters so that it shows up appropriately. We could add new ones very simply. You just click on it. It's wizard driven. So you can just click on either a chart or data table. Again, you can enable web pages if that's something that you're interested in doing. You have a bunch of different KPIs. So if I want to show a scorecard KPI, I can click on it and then follow all the way through the wizard-based screen, what kind of KPI it's going to be, how it's going to look. I can go ahead and finish it. Once everything looks good, I can drag and move wizards back and forth. So if this is where I want it to go, I can put it in those places, release it. I could even change the way that my format is. So if I wanted to have maybe everything in a box or maybe in columns or wide, double wide over here versus single wide. This can all be, again, used by controllers. So the individual people that have access to make those changes would have to have rights. And we'll look at security a little later on as we get there. For some organizations, they actually like the idea of doing something called a financial flow or a flow process. Think about a very simple, easy screen where this is their main screen that shows up, and the person that needs to enter in bills, they just click on the little icon, and boom, they're now ready to do bill adjustments. Or maybe they want to go in and someone wants to make a new asset in the fixed assets. They can go ahead and do that, or apply a cash transaction. And then within a few seconds, they're now in the cash transaction screen. So financial flow gives us the ability that it's icon driven to the function that maybe they're looking to do. A great tool within Acumatica is this universal search tool. I can go ahead and type anything I want inside this universal search. So taking a look right here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add in this go-to vendor. That happens to be one of our vendors in the system. So we'll look at that real quick. Go-to vendor. When I hit enter, it's actually looking for different items. So maybe it's a menu item. Maybe it's a task within our system. Somebody wants to write checks, but it isn't go-to vendor. I can look to see if it's any help articles out there for go-to vendor. There's no help to articles, but there are transactions. In this case, go-to vendor, I can see the AP bills, I can see POs, I can see drop ships. So this is the universal search. It reviews our database. Anywhere where the words go-to space vendor is, it'll appear in our system. And I could actually click on a record and drill right into it. If somebody called up and said, I have check number 123, you could put something in like that. So here's the bill for this particular vendor. I can look at financial details on this bill and so forth. A great tool that we have is when you're looking at the panel, if I click on financial, for instance, finance. In finance, I basically have the different kinds of quick tasks I have, and then within the drop downs, I can have transactions, profiles, and processes. If I go into, say, accounts receivable, same thing. I'm in my quick menu, has those immediate things like new invoice or a new customer. Same thing with accounts payable. I can enter in a new voucher or a new vendor. Any of these items that I have here, you might see every once in a while there's one that has an asterisk around it, a little star, for instance. This star is just like what you would have inside your browser. So for Chrome, if I was to star this page, it would show up in my favorites. Well, same thing. If I wanted budgets to be in my favorites, I just click on it, and sure enough, if I go to favorites, I've just added budgets to it. Let's go take a look at other things that we have in there. So let's say I take budgets out. I go back to favorites, and budget is no longer there. If I go into accounts payable and I say bill and adjustments, and let's say vendors, if I go back to favorites, they're going to go ahead and group them by the category. So in this case, these are all the things in finance. These are in payables. And I could even group in different kinds of quick tasks. So it's a great way that somebody can easily get what their jobs process is built right inside the favorite screen. They don't have to learn anything complex. The screen's very big. Looking at it on a tablet, they could easily walk around. If they need to find something on a cell phone because they're out in the field, again, the screens will shrink down because this is a true cloud application. It'll shrink based on the size of the real estate of the device. Going back over here, I've had a couple questions with regards to what was in the quick menu versus what is in the all items menu. So there's a little button up here, or a little drop down button, and you could actually see that little arrow will give us all items. Sometimes people are like, well, maybe I want some of these in the quick item list. How do I get them into the quick item list? Well, there's a little cog over here to the right. And in that cog, we can select a couple items, and that will then add it to the quick item list. So what we did is we added a few more. If we wanted to remove a few, we could even remove a few from it. So the cogwheel here is giving us the ability that when we're looking at quick items, we can pick and choose the things that we want them to appear on on your quick item list. So it doesn't have to be very cumbersome. But if you needed something very quickly to get to, you could simply just click on the drop down and see all the rest of the options in here. Also over here on the left panel, this left panel can be controlled too. For instance, if I click on more items, what you're going to see is the different kinds of financial modules that are available to us. Maybe currency management. Maybe that's important to us. If I take the little thumbtack and click the thumbtack, I've now added it over here on my left panel that I can then select it for these options. If we had the distribution modules, here I have different operations, sales order, purchase order, inventory. I could bring them aboard and have them come in there. Customizations, configurations, integrations, security control. Again, all of them are different modules that we can have either on the panel or not on the panel based on our choice at this point. To remove it from the panel, it's just simple. We just take the thumbtack off and it removes it from the panel on the left-hand side. Let's go ahead and take a look a little deeper in the application. So we also have the ability for a wiki document system. How many times have you set up specific user requirements where the office says, okay, these are our business processes and we really want our staff to follow these business processes. How do we go about doing that? We have a full wiki system where we can go ahead and you can enter in or create articles or business processes that will be available, again, like how we saw in the help screen. So let's go ahead and take a look real quick. I'm going to go over here to, let's do invoice. And inside invoice, you can see that I have this menu over here. These are all items that are for invoice. But if I come over to the help articles, these are all our wiki articles. So inside I could look at the user guide, I could look at sales orders, dunning process by customers. And if I click on one of them, again, the article process comes up and it's all editable. I can get in here, I could literally edit the text and make things look the way that I want it to look, save it, and then once it's done, it's back in our system. It's specific to our organization, our version. So even though that it is cloud, you're not configuring anything out into the global Acumatica community, but it's really just specific for your organization. It's a great tool with regards to it. You can create your own internal business processes. We could even link in YouTube videos. So if we really had new employees and they needed to learn some of our business processes, somebody could do a video for that and then link it in. So we have full wiki capability in our system. Multi-currency, we have different kinds of currency rates. They'll refresh the rates using that open exchangerate.com. So if you're interested in currency rates, we'll go ahead and take a look, and I'll just show you a quick report how that works. Really out of the box, very simple, and very powerful. Let's go back over to Acumatica. We'll look at our page. And in this case, I'm going to go over that currency management. I'm going to take a look at different kinds of rates. So in this case, it's looking for rates for currency to dollar. I can see the different currencies in here. Here I have Canadian, I have European, British pounds, Singapore dollars. These are the symbols. Great. And then I can go ahead and I can take a look at maybe, what are the rates? We need today's rates. Maybe we're going to grab the spot rate. I can just go ahead and just say process all. And within a couple seconds, they're going to go out there, grab today's rates off the table, and plop them in. So now I can see the different rates for our currencies. We could run reports using those rates. We have transactions that are happening. So if I need to create an invoice in US dollars, but pay it out in pounds, that the system will be able to take advantage of that. Let me go over here to our currencies, and let's just run a quick currency rate history report. Let's see what this month's rates look like. I'm just going to run a quick report, and then we've got so far, as of the effective date of 6/1 or 6/6, these are the rates for all these currencies. What about if I just want to see it for Canadian dollars? Let's go back and change our parameters to one particular rate, maybe not all the rates, but just one rate. I'm going to click Run the Report. In this case, I can now see the spot rate on these 2 dates. Great tool. You could go back as far as you want. If I want to go back into May and see May 1st, rerun that report. You can see how quickly you're able to get that same information all using a browser-based cloud accounting system. All right, let's go take a look at what the general ledger would do for us. If I go out to general ledger and let's say I wanted to look at how ledgers work. In our system, think about ledgers as those big, huge green binder books when we were back in the day in accounting, right? That's what a ledger was. And they've kind of created that as, in our case, it would be isolated tables specific to activity that's happening. In this case, I have an actual ledger, I have a budget ledger, and then every time that I want to integrate the EU company, what it does is it takes that EU and it will migrate over the EU activity based on, it does the conversion over to the functional currency of the company. In this case, my company that I'm in right here, this demo company, is US dollars. So it takes the euro that's being entered into the euro company and it's being converted over into actual US currency here and then stored in my EU ledger. We could even bring in reporting ledger as well as statistical ledger. And again, these are just tables that we can then apply information into it and make it available for reporting purposes. If I was to run a quick report, this is our, say, EU balance sheet report. I'm going to pop over here and let's run it for February. February is a good month. Double click and run report. And you can see I have basically a 4-column report, column A, B, C, and D. And column A is really just more of a description column, talking about my balance sheet here. And column B is my US entity. Column C is my EU entity. And it's drill down, drill up capability. So here I am double clicking and boom, I'm looking at my account codes. These are all my cash equivalents. And I could look at a specific account and see petty cash. Had this. Now I'm going to look at the different kinds of actions that happened. So we basically had a transaction that moved petty cash in. Go a little further. And we could see when this transaction transpired, what companies, what was the event, and what was the offsetting entry. Very quickly, right down to the pieces of information that we needed right out of a report. Extremely powerful. Going back over to our report screen, let's take a look. We have all the different kinds of reports in there. What I want to do is I want to take a look at, maybe I'm doing a journal entry. Let's say I'm creating a new journal entry today. And inside my new journal entry, I'm going to be getting some information from payroll. Payroll came in and ADP Paychecks or whoever our payroll company gave us the journal entry in a file. So let's say we have that file and it's been stored up on our desktop. So I'm just going to come back over to Acumatica. I'm going to go ahead and click Load Records. So I'm going to choose a file. It's on my dashboard. Let's see, go ahead and grab that real quick. Local. We're going to go ahead and grab that real quick. So there's that PR journal entry. Grab that PR journal entry, hit that upload field. At the very beginning, I'm just going to tell it to either update existing records, bypass existing records, or insert all records. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to insert all records. We have the ability to do a matching process. This is the columns in the report and then how I want it to apply. I'm just hitting the OK key because I've already given you a format that it does. And then voila, the import entry pops up. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. If your journal entries are really big or any kind of entries, you'll see this upload records from file right there at your fingertips. Helps that business process. I can go ahead and save, close, and I could release that entry. That entry is a balanced entry. It's just kind of hanging out there on 6.6. So if that entry is ready to get updated, I can just come up here, release it. I've now posted that entry, and it's now in my accounting system. All right. Had a chance to go and do that. It can be for any kind of entries. Hey, how many times it's been at the end of the month and people are trying to get the books closed, and all of a sudden everybody's saying, um, you know, we're ready to go and do the close, but we don't want anybody to post transactions any further into the system. Well, we can go ahead and we can help close out so that people aren't posting transactions any longer. So we go into closed financial periods and we can lock down different modules that we have. So if we wanted to close AP and AR, AP and AR transactions aren't going to be posted into the system anymore. We can go ahead and just close those periods and away we go. If somebody said, hey, wait a second, we're not done with that period, we need to post some other transactions, we can uncheck it and then it'll open up that accounts payable and allow us to be able to continue to post to it. And then come back and post it with an X to then close it back down and then run our general ledgers and close out the months. Looking back in terms of our accounting, our presentation here, we've had the opportunity to see the rates set up and the general ledgers. Our general ledgers, by the way, we could have 7 segments. So if your general ledger account code is very long, it could be up to 30 characters, 7 segments. Let's go take a look at accounts payable at this moment. So what we're going to do is we'll do little bills and adjustments. We'll show you how to attach, if you wanted, maybe a W-9 to an invoice or a vendor. And we could even attach maybe a copy of the scan. Talk about different kinds of payment methods that we have, as well as printing checks and 1099 capability. So going over to accounts payable, first thing I want to do is I want to go take a look at what we have on our screen. Right now I have all items on, looks real busy. Here I am now at my quick menu. The default, by the way, is quick menu, but I popped in there a few seconds ago and popped on this to show all. That's why we saw that. But I can enter in new bills, new payments. I can enter in vendor details or add a new vendor to the system. So what I'd like to do right now is to go in and show you a quick bill entry. So I show you how fast a process like this would be. Just maybe this is, in this case, because we're doing bills and accounts payable, these would be our G&A type bills like rent and telephone bill, expenses of that nature. If we wanted to go ahead and have it fully integrated with purchasing and affect inventory, we would enter those POs inside purchase order, do the receipt goods and invoices, and away we go in that sense. But in this point, we're just going to show you accounts payable. And we're going to go ahead and enter in a new bill. This bill is new. I can put in a date. I can put in the actual invoice number. As you notice, as you're going down the screen, you can see things that have asterisks. Those are the most required fields. So their invoice number happens to be 123. I could put in a description. And I could go ahead and select a vendor. I'm looking down my vendor. I'm going to grab my go-to vendor. In this case, you can see the due dates and everything are populating from my vendor's master file. Again, we'll go take a look at that in a few minutes. I'm coming down here to the bottom portion of my page. It's document details. I'm going to add a new line. And I'm going to come right over here to the extended quantity. This might just be a new bill description, whatever the bill is for that we have for our go-to vendor. And I'm going to put in the dollar amount. Let's say it's $500. I am now going to go ahead and book that. I can book it to any GL account code I want. The default is to that cost of goods sold inventory. It can be assigned to a project. And as you see, as I move it across, there's a bunch of other fields. Again, asterisk being that key field. If I want to go ahead and maybe I have a copy of that document and I want that invoice to be associated here. Let's go ahead and open up this journal voucher. This is my journal voucher. I can just quickly, oops, it's a little big. I can go ahead and take this journal voucher and pull it right on down into my document. When I let it go, if you look over here on files, you can see that I've just added a new file, and that is my AP voucher. So it's just save the AP voucher right over to our system. Pretty easy. And then what we could do is anything that you want to add to it, you can add to it. I have the ability to put notes in here, so if I want to write notes based on this record, this will stay with it. If I want to, maybe this go-to vendor is sitting inside my CRM, I could add a task, an event, or some kind of activity. You'll see that looking at it in the accounts receivable side, but our CRM is able to hold items, vendors, customers, employees. If I want to create a new notification, let's say every time that we enter this in, we want to send an email to somebody to let them know that we just posted or updated their invoice into the system, create our own unique notification system. Those notifications will happen. And let's go ahead. We're done here. We've already saved it. I have different kinds of actions if I want. I can recalculate the prices if I want to change maybe the currency. So I can put it into a different currency at this point. So if I want to see it in pounds or so forth, I can do that as well. I could take a look at reports, and I can even go out to the vendor detail, because maybe let's take a look at what go-to vendor has got going on over here. Here's our vendor. You can see that I've got a couple invoices outstanding for that vendor. I can enter new bills right from this screen, even though I'm just in the vendor detail tab. Back here on this, we're in pretty good shape. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And now that bill is hanging out there in our system for the $500. If I'm entering in a bunch of bills, I can go ahead and enter in a bunch of bills, and I can release the bills as they go. This bill, by default, on my setup options, is every time I enter a bill, it just puts it on hold. I take it off hold. It is now ready to be released. I can release it if I want. Once it's released, that's basically our process of updating into the system. It's there in the system. And then I have different kinds of activities I could now do. I could pay that bill, or I could adjust that bill. I could reverse that bill. I could even reclassify the GL if the GL went to the wrong account. I can go ahead back out to vendor details, and now I can actually look at the AP register detail report if I want to see what that looked like. And this is the actual entry. It hit my AP account and my cost of goods sold account. You can see that value there, as well as I have drill down, drill up capability right off the register to see what's going on with that event. When looking at payables, I have the ability to have different kinds of vendor classes. So if I wanted to vendor class that, I could even provide different kinds of discounts. Inside our system, we have the ability to also set up vendors with multiple locations, as well as create different kinds of non-stock items. So things that we may buy if we're not connected to an inventory module. In this case, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of expenses. We could have charges or services. We could even have labor costs, as well as things that are like non-stock items. I could look at just the non-stock item. I could look at just the labor. I could just look at service versus all the records. So there are these great filters at the top of the system. You want to create your own criteria, we can help you create that criteria. And we can go in there and then create generic inquiries where we could modify the top of these inquiries so that it could be by your, whatever your table pieces are that you want. Terms, credit cards. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to do, we have something which is called quick checks. This gives me the ability to go in there, just make a quick check for a particular invoice. There's a quick check that's already there. I can look at all records, and I can make a new record. In this case, we're going to go ahead and do a quick check again over to our go-to vendor. I can go ahead and take a look at maybe writing up a new check and just posting out what that value is if I wanted to. I could even go over and take a look at what the details are for this information. There was an approval process that we needed to follow, remittance information if we wanted to let them know that this check is being made. So we have that capability at that point. Uh, some people like the grid form. I'm a fan of the grid form. Some people like the actual payment form. They like a form to fill in. So it really makes it user friendly for uh, the employee that's doing the work, the day-to-day end user, on how they feel comfortable with the system. Right? If this quick check isn't what we wanted to do at this point, but we wanted to do an actual check run, we can go over here to the check process, and we can go ahead and create our new checks that we want to do at this point. So again, I can go and grab my go-to vendor and go find our $500 invoice, and you can see all their invoices just populated. And this is the invoice we want. We don't want this invoice, so we'll just delete that line and just keep this line here. And this one's ready to go. I can just go ahead and save this, and I can then go ahead, get another one, and add another one to the system and so forth, and run my check run if I wanted to do it that way. I could also go through and just do a regular process where I can select and prepare the invoices for payment. So this is more of a batch process. I can process the payments, cut the checks, and then I can go ahead and update that process. So we can go through that process instead of just selecting one at a time and making payments to it. Every once in a while, you'll have vendors potentially that are your 1099 vendors. This is entering a brand new vendor from scratch. Actually, didn't mean to do that. I meant to click the vendor detail tab. I'm going to go back out to payables, click on vendor details, and grab our go-to vendor. Again, you can see the different invoices that are in the system, and today we created that one there. So if I wanted to look at vendors and just look at my vendor card, this is the list of vendors through the system, and I can switch the pages and find it that way. I could just put in go-to vendor up here, and I could have gone to the same vendor information. But I'm going to click on the vendor and show you their information. So this is my go-to vendor. It's in an active status. You can put them in on hold payments. You can even do what's called one time. So after the activity is done, it'll actually turn them off into an inactive account. I have my account information, I have my main information, and then how do we affect this, the financial, what their terms are, what currency, how do they like to be paid. If the vendor is 1099, I can turn on the 1099 attribute right there. Payment information is where we're remitting it to. So in this case, we remitted to their main address. How do they like to get paid? Again, paid by check. When we do purchasing from them, have a bunch of information in terms of shipping processes, what locations we have for this vendor, so they might be in multiple locations, what contacts we have for them. In this case, we have both Bob and Peter. I could take a look at different kinds of activities that we might want to set up. Again, this is going to be full CRM. Maybe I want to add an email and send it over to Bob because I noticed that we had some type of thing that we needed to do with regards to being shipped the products or services that they're providing us a different way. I can see the GL account codes that default in. These, again, are just the default ones that can be overridden at the time. I can look at different kinds of actions that we have. In this case, maybe different types of reports, print out vendor history, or maybe our aged payables with them. I can look at maybe the approval process of how we can approve the bills and what we've been paid, as well as I can go ahead and enter new bills, create checks. I can even change IDs if necessary. Let's go take a look real quick at receivables and what receivables bring to the table. And again, we're just going to pop down one more. So in receivables, I'll show you the customer profile. We'll review a little bit of the customers. We'll talk about tasks. We'll go in and just show you what an invoice is. I know we're running, we've got about 18 minutes left of our presentation. I talked about cash receipts. Let's go ahead and pop back over to our presentation. So inside accounts receivables, again, just like before, I can enter in a new customer. I could look at details. I could even see the customer's profile. I'm looking at all items. I don't necessarily need to look at all items. I could be on the quick menu if that made more sense for me. I can go on to customers, and I can see all our customers in there. I'm going to grab this USA Bartending School. I'm going to open it up. I have some basic information. Again, if you want more information out on these tables, they're very customizable. We can add more fields in here, but we can create it on, last modified on, parent. These are the files that are going across the top. Things that are kind of interesting is this particular customer has got an attached file attached to it. So in this case, I can open up and see what that file is, and maybe there's some information. It's pretty amazing. I like that a lot. So if you want to go ahead and tag, you can tag different components, even write notes about that customer. Let's look at our customer record. Just like the vendor record, we have general information, billing information, delivery, locations. So if they have multiple ship tos, this is how we can define the multiple ship tos. And we can even turn on which is their default ship to. If ship to is no longer valid any longer, we can always take it out of play by turning it off. What the contacts are for their organization, who our salespeople are that actually manage those, and salespeople can even be responsible for managing specific locations. We can create attributes, so if it's important for us to capture information about our customers, maybe specific information about how large they are, maybe SIC code, maybe things that are important to us. You can think about anything that's important that you want to know about your customers. Those attribute fields can be filled in here, and we can then use them for reporting, as well as we have the same ability to add activities. In this case, when I clicked on the activities tabs, because this customer is set up in the CRM, we've actually showed different kinds of activities that have happened to it. So I didn't have to be in the CRM to see the activities. I could see it right from the customer record. It's fully integrated CRM. I could write emails, I spoke, notes. I could even look at tasks for events to occur. I could hyperlink to the event, and then from here I could see some information about why they need a proposal. On a particular customer, and I probably should have just grabbed that. I jumped out pretty quick. Let me go ahead and take a look at looking at different kinds of reports, for instance, so I can see customer history or their customer profile. I can even send them a customer statement. So if we wanted to get back paid on some prior invoices because they're a little outdated, or overdue, we can then go ahead and do that as well. And same thing within the inquiries. I can see the same details, and I can see our customer statement history, how many times we sent it. We could look at new actions on a particular customer. So we have a whole bunch of things that we can do at that point. Going back out to receivables, I'm going to click on New Invoice and show you what a quick invoice we can do. It could be a new invoice. It could be a debit memo, credit memo, overdue charges. We could even do a quick credit write-off if necessary. I could go ahead and select our customer. Let's grab our USA Bartending School. It's going to go ahead and default to the locations, but again, I can select any of those locations right from the drop-down. They're going to go ahead, and we're expecting the money to be to us in U.S. currency, because that's the default. If they gave us a customer PO number, I could enter in the PO number. I could write a description for it. I'm just going to go right down here to the lines. Looking at the lines, I can go ahead and select what kind of item ID, maybe it's a kind of service or charge that we had. Maybe it's a particular installation, or maybe they just got some diagnostic work done for them. And we did a burn-in for 8 hours. There's a unit price. The unit price comes across, seems a little high on this one, but we negotiated a new price to them, so we're going to go ahead and do it for that $1,800 price. Comes across, I can give them a discount if I want to, a discount percentage. I can poke it to a different GL account code if it needs to go to a different account code. If we need to deal with different sub-accounts, I can do it. salesperson that was on this, could have been a different salesperson. So again, a lot of this information you can change or add. You can move fields back and forth, depends on where you want. You don't have to be subject to the sequence that it's in. So you can feel free to move that around anywhere you want. You could even go ahead and remove fields if you don't want to have fields that are in there. You may not be branch driven, right? One company, multiple branches. So maybe you need to pop that off. Maybe you never give discounts, so they get no discount amount or percentage. Again, these fields will just come right off the screen for you. So you can go ahead and change it, and away they go. I'm going to go ahead at this point, and it's balanced. I hit the save key, and I can do a couple different things at this point. I can send this in an email. I could add a schedule to it. I could mark it do not email. I can do inquiries on this report. I can run reports, and I can release it. In this case, I'm just going to release it. It's going in as of 6/6. There's my reference number. If I want to look at my financial transaction that took place, this is the journal entry. So here's accounts receivable, and we increased our sales. In this case, they were entitled to a discount automatically. If I wanted to go ahead and pay that invoice, and I do still run a little short on that, I can go into our payment component. I can add a new payment at this point. It will be a payment. I can then go ahead and select our customer. I can then upload the documents that they made a payment on. So if we received a check, we can go ahead and just grab that. And basically, we would just save it, take it off hold, and then release that. Looking at our more items, and we have quite a few things in here. One of the cool things that somebody asked me, they said, hey, you know what? We want this SaaS version. So we want it up in the public cloud, and we want Acumatica there. But every once in a while, I'm offline. I'm somewhere where I need to be able to just look at the system and be able to review it. You can pull down a 2-user trial mode version of it, and at the same time, you can go out here and you can add in or load up maybe a particular configuration. That would be configuration actually would be in System Manager. You can go ahead and pull down a copy of a snapshot. So you can create a snapshot of that one that's up there. And you can then, after you pull it down, you can then turn around and export out that snapshot. And when that snapshot gets exported out, it'll then be available for downloading to your workstation. And then from your workstation, you would just do the same thing. You would import your snapshot, and then it would be available that the data is now offline, running locally at your workstation. That's why Acumatica's got that 3 sets of deployment capability. It can be on-prem, hosted cloud, or it could be public cloud. Great tool there. In terms of security, we have the ability that we can go in our security screens, and we can set up user security. And again, we can define users. So we would set up users and user types and allow them to change passwords or how they want to be set up in the system. We give them access to different kinds of roles. Inside roles, we can then go and say what kind of activities they're allowed to have or see. So we can define that role in that sense. And in this case, here's like sales employees, and they can go ahead and they can look at kind of tasks they can do. So user security can go right down to an event, a screen, an item. You could set up different events that will then flag when users do certain things. We have audit history that we could look at. So fully robust in that sense. And let's see. As well as we are integrated, we can do projects. So if we're interested in setting up project accounting, we can define projects. We have the capability of doing fixed assets, so we can add a new access. When fixed asset is turned on and integrated with accounts payable, when you're purchasing things, you can then go ahead and actually add that asset into your fixed asset profile. So here's an example, a listing of all our fixed assets in our system. So we got different kinds of machines. And I could look at a machine and equipment. So here's the general information about the machine. I can drag files over again, like I kind of showed you before. We could simply just pull over the maybe a copy of that. Maybe it's a bill. Maybe it's invoice instructions. Maybe it's and again, I can just keep pulling things over and over and over multiple times into that field, and you'll see that the files um, can be increased based on the records in there. So maybe it's warranty information. Maybe it's the original purchase order for the product. Maybe it's some kind of schedule that we're maintaining or cleaning of the product. So think about it. Those files are available, and anyone can then open them up and click on them at will. Some tangible information about the product, where it's stored potentially, what GL account codes we're hitting off of this, what's left after taking depreciation, if there's any components that we had to add to this, maybe we're trying to improve some things on it, what the history depreciation schedule has been. We're looking at a specific book. In this case, it happens to be the posting book. We could look at the double declining balance, straight line. So we could have different books as well. We could dispose, suspend, reverse, calculate depreciation. We could even split. So what's really great about it is that it's just another module that you can turn on and add to your system. Hopefully we've given you enough information with regards to the Acumatica product that you find that it is definitely full feature.